My name is Jordan Parker. I study Development Coaching and Fitness Level 3. This is Sports Psychology Assignment 2. Arousal. Arousal is increased and caused by an increase in motivation. Motivation is linked with the intensity and direction of behavior. This means that the level of arousal in which we behave will affect the motivation, hence performance. Sports such as shooting, diving, and archery involve fine movements that require concentration, therefore their level of arousal should be lower as they need to focus, whereas in sports such as basketball, football, and rugby, their level of arousal can be higher, as the movements are simpler and don't need to be as focused, therefore they are able to have the higher level of arousal. Hull's drive theory. Putting Hull's drive theory into a sporting example would be saying that in all sports, the higher level of arousal, the higher the performance level will be. So this means, in a football match, with a higher level of arousal, then you will have the higher performance. This could be when the other team is much better than you are. This will mean that your arousal levels will be higher, therefore your performance will be higher. On the flip side, if you were playing a team that was much worse than you, then your arousal levels will be much lower, as you think the game will be easier, therefore your performance will be lower. Inverted U theory. A sporting example of this would be that you are going into a football match, your arousal levels may be low, as the other team is worse than you, so you feel as though it will be an easy game. Therefore, you will play at a lower level of performance. However, as the game progresses, you realise that they are playing much better than you, so at the halftime the manager will try and get your arousal levels up. He will bring the arousal levels up to the optimal arousal performance. This brings out optimal performance. However, as the game progresses, it becomes much easier. This is because you are playing better as you're optimally aroused. Then the player will begin to become overconfident. This is because they have higher levels of arousal, therefore causing him to lose concentration and lose focus, therefore having lower levels of performance again. Here is a correctly labeled diagram of the inverted U theory related to skilled tasks. Complex tasks require a lower level of arousal to optimally perform in comparison to simpler tasks that allow higher level of arousal to perform optimally. Catastrophe theory. The catastrophe theory is known as the relationship between arousal levels and performance levels by a steady increase to reach optimal performance, much like the inverted U theory. However, the catastrophe theory states that becoming over-aroused when you are at optimal performance will cause you to choke. Choking is when a player would be playing really well, scoring goals and making important passes. However, when it comes down to the most important player of the match, they will get their technique wrong and potentially costing them the game. An example of this would be when Fernando Torres was playing really well against Manchester United. He was optimally aroused, then he had the opportunity to prove the media and fans wrong by showing that he was a really good player still, by going around the goalkeeper and scoring an open goal, which is at point A. However, he choked, and after he got round the goalkeeper he missed the open net, therefore his level of arousal and level of performance dropped to point B. After this, his arousal level continued to go up because he was desperate and determined to prove a point, therefore causing his performance level to go down, which is at point C. Concentration and attention spans. A narrow attention span would be where you don't see enough of the game. For example, this would be when a defender thinks that a winger is doing too many skills, then he gets tunnel vision on him. He will then try and tackle the winger hard to get him on the floor and stop him from doing skills. This would have a high level of arousal. A broad attention span would be where you see too many irrelevant things during a game. For example, this would be if a defender is not concentrated or focused, therefore the striker loses him by going in a different direction and behind him. This would be low levels of arousal. An optimal attention span would be where you see all the relevant things during a game. For example, this would be when a defender is able to stay aware of where the ball is and also know where the player is. so that he can mark him and intercept the ball and prevent a goal scoring opportunity. This would be optimal arousal. Sympathetic and parasympathetic. Sympathetic and parasympathetic work together to maintain homeostasis within the body. The parasympathetic will bring the body back to its homeostasis. Anxiety. Increased heart rate, increased breathing rate, sweating and muscle tension are symptoms of anxiety, and this can occur in sport when you're about to take a penalty in football, or it could be when you're about to dive off the board into a swimming pool. When you step up to the penalty, you can feel your heart rate going, you'll start to breathe a lot, you'll start to sweat, and you'll feel tense in your muscles almost as though you don't want to take it. This would be the same in diving. Your heart rate would go up when you're on top of the board, your breathing rate would increase, you would start sweating, and your muscles would also feel tense as though you wouldn't want to dive.